right, so what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. And I'm here with my beautiful wife, AKDI. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, I'm AKDI and I'm from Turkey, and today we're reviewing what?
The Treatment, the 2014 Belgian crime thriller horror movie. Some people say it's one of the most disturbing movies of all time. Me and my wife watched it last night, and it's been on my watch list for a long time. And I can say that after watching it, I was frustrated with it. I was very disturbed by it, but I wasn't exactly moved the way I wanted to be moved going into this movie, knowing the plot and hearing all of the great reviews about it. How did you feel after watching it?
I don't know if it's because we saw like very bad movies bad in terms of just like very gory or very just terrifying movies.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, yes, like the topic is bad and it's like horrifying and terrifying, but the movie itself wasn't that horrifying to me. Like even, like I know it's like a psychological thriller, right? But even that, I don't know, it just didn't like, connect to me in that sense where just I had absolute chills all over my body and I couldn't stop thinking about it the next day and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, like I didn't understand why there was such a commotion about this movie.
Yeah. I mean, there are scenes in here that are blood curdling. There are scenes that are very disturbing, like when he's watching the videotapes and when we actually find out who the, criminal is that he's chasing down. There are parts that do sort of make you, get those goosebumps. But overall, you're still frustrated by the main guy, the main actor. The main character, whose name is Nick, played by this Belgian actor named Geert van Rampelberg. That was the most frustrating thing for me. What about you?
Yes, I think he did have somewhat like stereotypical, haunted by my past detective sort of character.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think anything special about him. Like there wasn't anything special. And I feel like with movies like this, the main character should nail the feeling and the sense of just being haunted. And yes, like he was haunted by his past as well, but I just felt like I don't know, like he was also very manic and just angry, just to be angry, not because like I don't know. I just didn't get that deeper sense.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people would agree with you there that like this guy does have sort of that stereotypical, angry, aggressive cop haunted by his past, trying to bring the criminals to justice by any means. And when Akdi's saying that this guy's haunted by his past, basically this film is about this cop or detective who had his brother kidnapped when they were very young by a pedophile. And since then, he's been trying to bring some justice or closure for that crime that happened against him, which is why he became a detective later in life. And in this film, there's a long, drawn-out sort of chase for this new pedophile who's on the loose, taking kids and basically doing horrible things to them. So I think this film had a lot going for it at the start because, number one, everybody hates pedophiles and a lot of people love the police. So, like, I feel like the writers of this film, and I've heard that this movie is based on a book, so the writer of the book had a lot going for it, like everybody's gonna be like, yeah, get the pedophiles. Yeah, get the people that are kidnapping kids. Oh no, the main character is like Wolverine. The main character is this like hairy, aggressive man just running all over the city trying to chase these people, showing no decisive actions, no sort of caution, no sort of like wariness about what he's doing. You know what I mean? He's just diving headfirst into everything, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the movie was depending on too much of the fact that pedophilia is bad. Mm-hmm. And it was using that as a thriller element where I wish they used the main character to show how twisted a mind can get when, you have that sort of childhood trauma.
I think that's one of the things that really bothered me about watching all the reviews about this film. Because when we look at the ending and also what Nick does throughout the film, I think one of the main things that's missed is the theme that we get so caught up in hating pedophiles that we forget about the victims and the children. And that's my takeaway from watching this film. Do you have any like takeaways that you got from it?
Um, I don't know, because for me, the main character always was between, should I like, revenge my past or should I save the people now? I feel like the main character was always in that betweenness.
Mm-hmm.
So then at the end, I didn't know if he let go of the past or he was able to save the now. Like at the end, for me, that was still blurred.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the main take is that, you have to let go of things, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're unable to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, that's such a cliche, like, take away, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't get the feeling like he was torn in between, doing right for the people right now, right? I feel like he was hell bent on just catch the pedos and stuff like that. And the way he went about catching the pedos was so frustrating because a lot of the times you're looking at the screen and you're like, why did you make that decision, dude? Why didn't you, call for backup? Why didn't you, wait a little bit? Why didn't you do some actual investigating? I feel like Chris Hansen, the guy from Catch a Predator, famous TV show in America where predators actually come and knock on Chris Hansen's door and he catches them in his own trap. I feel like Nick was like so bad at doing his job, it was frustrating to watch on screen. And, yeah, he was only obsessed with catching the people, which you should be doing, but also trying to help the victims. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And also, like, his lack of having anything personal was disturbing for me as well. He didn't have a wife, he didn't have a girlfriend, he didn't have friends unless you
Mm-hmm.
count other police officers.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even see him eat or sleep. So for me, it's like, okay, like I know he's chasing the story and he's like, obsessed with it and things like that, but I wish there was some downtime for him where he was reflecting on what he was doing, which was
Mm-hmm.
like dumb most of the time.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, let's walk through this story a bit and maybe we'll find some redeeming qualities here. So anybody listening so far, there are good things about this film. I think the acting is good. The scenes are good. They do create an atmosphere and a world around this film. But you'll see what we're talking about as we break down the story. So basically the film opens up. It's a Belgian film made in Flanders. And the people mostly are speaking Dutch in here and also a little bit of French. But I feel like I only heard like Dutch or something else like Flemish or something as people were speaking in this movie. Did you catch that from the language?
Yeah, for me it felt like Dutch,
Mm-hmm.
and but I heard like some French words like "ça va"
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So I wasn't sure. Like I was trying to figure out the language as well as we
Yeah.
were watching it, but I felt like it was Dutch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the movie takes place in some place in Belgium, right? And basically, there's two kids playing by this train track. They're dressed up like cowboys and Indians, and while they're playing by this train track, there's a man speaking, narrating, saying, "Dear Nick, your brother got sold to a club in Amsterdam. He likes little boys now too." And then another letter starts, "Dear Nick, your brother died of thirst, or he's dead now. He was in a caravan. I loved him my entire life. Uh, so long to your brother Nick." And then there's also, flashbacks of like the two little boys playing with this like grown man. And then we see Nick, the main character. He's at his house looking out the window while a dream catcher hangs out the window, and he has like little toys of like cowboys and Indians. And as he's looking out the window, he sees this older man, kind of like sneak into his backyard through the hedges. And then Nick rushes out the house and tries to chase this man down. And the man escapes from Nick by, crossing the train tracks right before a train comes. And Nick screams, "Platinus, I'm gonna catch you. I swear one day I'm gonna catch you, Platinus." And then, moving forward, Nick goes to investigate a crime. He's called to a scene where a family had been, trapped in this house for days. And when they walk into the house, the police find that there's a symbol of women painted on the wall, and the house smells of piss. There's also written in like red ink the word oxine or something, and they find that the people were the woman was kept in like a closet for days, and she would have died in a 12 hours of thirst, and the father and son were kept like in another room. And so then Nick goes to the woman who is left behind, or the woman who survived the incident, and she, doesn't want to say much, but she says she basically heard screaming through the other side of the door, and she just, smelt piss throughout the house. And the man, the father, he's sort of like, in deep ICU treatment. He needs extreme medical care because of the abuse he suffered. So what did you think about like the opening, first three scenes of the film?
Okay, so first of all, I just have to say that I think the first half of this movie was good. Because it was good at building tension and just like trying to make the audience solve the riddle. And after the other half, that's where I got frustrated. But talking about the first scenes, at first I thought his brother was sex trafficked. Because I couldn't make sense of the dialogue in the beginning. So, yeah, but I just got the sense, okay, like, this is about his brother. Maybe he's gonna be, like, taken, but not daughter, but brother. So that's what I was thinking and stuff. And then when we were showed the crime scene, I knew this was gonna be like, or I felt that it's gonna be gory and, oh, this is like some heinous, like, hideous, horrifying crime. So I got excited.
Yeah.
Like a normal person. And, yeah. So in the beginning it was interesting. And also, like, when he went to speak to that woman there, I was still trying to figure out what the criminal was doing and what was his intention. So yeah, it made me want to watch more because I was curious about all the stuff that they showed. So I think it had a good introduction. What about you?
Yeah, the introduction of the film really does suck you into the world because, at the very beginning, you sort of know what the crime was. Somebody's brother was taken, and there is, this hint that, it's sex trafficking of young boys, right? And that needs to be stopped completely, right? And I think the film also does a good job of like giving us leads to different suspects. So as you're watching this film, you might think, okay, that's the guy who is the criminal. But as the film proceeds, you see that twist. And in the beginning of the film, right, when Nick first goes to the house, right, there's like this fat, sort of homeless looking guy shuffling through the woods, and he like finds a bunch of stuff. And the police say, "Who are you?" And he just rambles, "What I find is what I keep. What I find is what I keep." So they just dismiss him like as a crazy person, right? And then later on, after Nick visits the woman who was a victim of the crime, he visits this family's house that has a young boy, and it's a mother and a father. And then like there's this creepy guy scoping around the area who has like a balding head, and he looks like the stereotypical like pedo, right? And so I like how this film at the beginning sort of makes you think, okay, is the guy Platinus the criminal? Is it going to be this, crazy fat guy? Is it going to be the guy we think is the pedophile because he looks like it and acts like it? You get what I'm saying? So there's a good mystery beginning.
Yeah, I like it. I like the beginning. Like you said, they give us some suspects. And that's why I also said, like, the first half is, good because you're also theorizing it in your head as well. But, maybe, like, the only thing is that the suspects are a bit stereotypical. Like, there's a crazy guy, there's a weirdo looking bald old guy, and also, like, the other guy is old and has, Platinus. He has, like, this, weird, skinny dude, old dude vibes. And, like, I know that's the eerie part of the movie and stuff like that. But in reality, I think sometimes it might be more horrifying if the criminal is actually someone way normal looking or even likable. So I don't like that stereotype really, because it's been done so many times.
Yeah, I got you. I think one of the parts of the film that gets a bit confusing at the very beginning is they start talking about this female toxin. So the police, they investigate what the guy wrote on the wall with the sign of the females and then the word oxen or something like that. And I don't know if this got lost in translation between Dutch and English, but we watched this film in English subtitles and the police are having their meeting and they're trying to explain what they found. And they say that the walls were covered with a female toxin, diluted with urine. And I was like so confused. Like, what the fuck is a female toxin? Do they mean like estrogen or something like that? Like, and yeah, that was one of the leads that they started to go with as to who the suspect might be. Were you confused by the female toxin part?
Yeah, I mean, I think they said it was red dye diluted with female urine or something, or toxin. Yeah. And I mean, I was confused because after he talks to the victim, the mom, and nothing happened to her, we find out like, the criminal ignored her for 3 days and then tortured other people in the family. So I was thinking like, how would he like use female toxin or female urine or whatever, but like not touch the female? What would make him not, touch the female? Because it is usually like, the woman who gets tortured and stuff like that. So that part was interesting. That part was not stereotypical, so I was curious about the crime and yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit weird for me because I just thought maybe that was a mistranslation, right? Because I've never heard of female toxin in English. But, yeah, so basically, Nick goes door to door in the neighborhood to sort of like investigate what people are saying in the community. And this is when we find out about the troll, right? Maybe there was a little girl earlier who appeared when Nick was leaving the house where the mother who was kept in the closet, this little girl approached him and said the troll climbs through the window and takes kids away, something like that. But, yeah, when he goes to this one woman's house, this little boy comes up to him and says, "Are you here to stop the troll? He's like breaking into windows and taking kids." And the mom was like, "Stop it. Shut up. I'm talking to the handsome police officer guy here." And so, yeah, we hear about this troll throughout the community. Then we also see the scene with the fat guy who was supposedly just a homeless guy rummaging for stuff that he finds. And the detectives say, "If you find out anything, please let us know." And yeah, he's like rubbing a camera. The police are continuing to like investigate the female toxin and what that has to do with everything. And then eventually Nick goes to the hospital where the man, who was kept in the house with his wife, is in the hospital bed. And Nick is trying to interview him, but he is very cagey. He acts like he doesn't want to answer. And he comes across too like he might be a suspect as well as being involved in this crime. Any comments about any of those scenes?
Talking about the hospital scene with the victim, the father of the family, right, Mr. Simmons. I didn't understand why he didn't like the detective, Nick. But I thought what Nick said was just so cringe.
What did he say?
Because Mr. Simmons said something like, "I don't like the way you're looking at me," or "I don't like your eyes," right? And this is a guy who just came out of like an immense trauma, was tortured for 3 days, and he's barely surviving, right? And then Nick goes and says like, "Oh, why you don't like my eyes? You should look at the eyes of the guy who fucked you up and your kid," and stuff like that. Like, why would you say that to a patient? That was so cringe for me.
Yeah, there's this, like, every time Nick tries to, like, get into the hospital or, like, enter a place, he just says, "Bro, think about the kids who are being raped." Like, he just loves to drop that card, like, anytime he can. Now, I know he's, like, intense and, like, trying to seek justice by any means, but, like, every time he goes into the hospital, he, like, says that to the nurse. She's like, "Hello, good morning." And he's like, 10 kids got raped today. Like, whoa. Yo, Nick, you gotta chill. But yeah.
And every time he goes to the hospital, he breaks the law. Like, he goes into the patient's room without, any permission. He risks their lives. He smokes in the hospital. Like, what is up with this guy? I don't know. He has something against hospitals.
Yeah, he has something against society's norms. Now, once again, we all want Nick to catch the pedophiles. Like nobody is watching this film saying, "Oh God, this guy's the bad guy." It's just frustrating the way he is so impatient. Uh, you would expect somebody who he looks like he's 40 plus years old, right? So he's been living with this trauma all his life. And he's probably very obsessed with it, but you would also expect a man of his age and experience to be more slow to action, as in more methodical in what he's doing. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And also, it feels like he's trying to solve his own vendetta, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, you want in a movie like this, you want the main detective character to be like empathetic to the victims because
Yeah.
they went through the same thing. So you want that selflessness.
Right,
But
right.
Nick doesn't give that.
Exactly. Now, in defense of this film, what we'll find out later, what the victims went through is actually a little bit worse than actually what Nick went through. So maybe there is some degree of separation, right? But yeah, it still is frustrating to watch. But there is one of the most interesting scenes that happened. So after Nick, meets up with that family, and they tell him about the troll. There's a scene late at night when the little boy screams for his parents, Mom, help, help, help. And the parents are like, what's wrong? And the boy says, there was a troll outside in the window. And the mother is like, oh, baby, you must have scared the troll away with your screaming. And the father's like, ha ha, yeah, my big strong boy did it. And then the father checks outside and looks at the window and sees a handprint. And then, he walks outside again and looks outside the house and sees that there's nobody there. And he sort of gives the excuse, oh, this house was newly built. Maybe one of the construction workers just left that handprint, and he sort of like forgets about it, right? And then there's also a scene that comes right after that where Nick is at his house reading letters, that Platinus wrote to him. And then we have the image of Platinus like sort of like creeping behind Nick, late at night, while he's reading these letters. And the letters are saying to Nick, like, you'll know the truth. Your brother ended up loving me and I ended up loving him, and we became, really bonded over the pedophilic relationship we had. And, Nick has a stack of these letters that Platinus has sent him over the years. Any comments about any of those two scenes?
Yeah, first of all, if I see like a upside down handprint on
Mm-hmm.
my child's window, and then also there was a whole abduction serial, not murder, but something like that, murder, I guess, was in my neighborhood, I'm not sleeping that night. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the witch doctors. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, I'm believing my child. I'm not sleeping. That was horrifying.
Yeah.
I didn't know like how they were so chill about it, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's like Northern Europeans. I don't know. But yeah, I like that scene where Nick is reading the letters and then we see like this face creeping up behind him. So
Mm-hmm.
it gives the impression that, okay, he's constantly being haunted by this man.
Mm-hmm.
But Nick is a sadist. Like, why is he doing this? He's a cop and he's like, at the, I guess like he has a lot of power in his precinct.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why he's not reporting this man, reporting the letters. I think he likes the fact that he gives him trauma constantly so
Yeah.
that he never forgets his brother. That's what I get from it. Cause like, why wouldn't you report it? You're a cop. Like, you can use it to your advantage in the situation.
Right, right. But I think you would mean that he's a masochist because he likes the pain
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
than
yeah.
the
Sorry.
sadist. But I think in defense of this film, once again, when we find out later about Platinus, there's not much Nick can do. Basically, we find out that, Platinus was the main suspect of kidnapping his brother back in the day, but the police never found any evidence, so they had to let him go. So since then, Platinus has basically been trolling Nick by writing letters to him constantly saying, yeah, me and your brother loved each other. Yeah, I gave your brother that good D. Your brother was my little boy toy. Like what? Like he's trolling him and there's nothing you can do because that's not against the law to troll somebody. You get what I'm saying? Now, should it be? I'll ask you that question because you're saying like he should report him. Should it be against the law to troll somebody?
I think in this case, it's more than trolling. Come on. It's like, it's stalking. It's, I don't know,
Harassment.
harassment. Yeah. Like, it's not only trolling. Like, this man is continuously writing letters
Mm-hmm.
to this man, looking out from his like window, you know, laughing and stuff like that. And since he's a cop, he can collect evidence for a month and then report
Mm-hmm.
him, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. But trolling, should it be a crime? I mean, when it comes to bullying, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, some trolling is just sort of harmless.
Yeah.
But most of it actually, if you think about it, contains hate.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think like back to the scene when the kid said, "Hey, have you heard about the troll?" And Nick should have replied like, "Yeah, I've been trolled all my life. Since I was 12 years old, this grown man's been writing me letters saying he fucked my brother."
Wow, wow. I mean, in that sense, I'll applaud the writer and the director that using troll as a double entendre.
Yeah. That is like a double meaning in this film that I don't think any of the other reviewers have spoken about. Like, there's two types of trolls in this film. The actual troll who is kidnapping kids that somehow all the kids know about, but none of the parents really. Like, how are the kids talking about on the playground? Like, hey, did the troll visit you? Yeah, yeah, he took me yesterday. Like, what? All the kids know about the troll, but none of the parents seem to realize it, right? And yeah, the double entendre with the trolling of Platinus continually writing letters to Nick and harassing him for falsely, supposedly, according to the law, falsely accusing him of taking his brother. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's smart. I wish they did, like, I wish they showed Platinus doing more crazy shit to him
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do
to
you have
make
any
that maybe more obvious, you know?
Do you have any theories as to why the kids knew about the troll, but maybe none of the parents did?
I mean, I'm guessing he's just showing up on their window,
Mm-hmm.
like out of nowhere, where every night he's inspecting, you know, every house to see which house he can go to and then, you know, abduct them,
Yeah.
basically. Or, I don't know, maybe he's fantasizing about them, like watching them
Mm-hmm.
sleep and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, parents never believe what children say
Yeah.
about monsters under the bed and things like that.
Yeah. Once again, this first, 25, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of the film are actually really good at building that tension, creating that atmosphere, and leading us down this mystery rabbit hole. So, I really like the scene when Nick is reading the letters, and I really like the scene with the kid, saying, "Mom, come help me, there's a troll outside," and the parents don't believe him, right? Because I think that once again leads to the big themes of this film. Like we're so focused on the attackers and not focused on the kids, who are the victims, right? Moving on though, Nick is, telling his police chief, that, we need to continue, searching in that area where we found the family. And he convinces them to take some cadaver dogs to that forest to look for the bodies, if there are any kids who are dead there. And basically the dogs go out there and they find a kid tied up in a tree, dead. And this is one of the most graphic scenes. They show the autopsy, basically, of this kid, and they unbound him. He's, I think, no more than like 10 years old, and they show this huge bite mark that was left on his back. And this scene was very, really, really like moving because it's like this scientific sort of horror, like how they're using this high level medical tech, terminology to describe, how he died and the lacerations on his body, and they're flipping over his body. And Nick is also in the, coroner's room as they're doing the autopsy. It's almost, it almost makes you want to cry because you see this very small child on this table while adults are like, breaking down the reasons he passed. Any comments about that?
Yeah, that was definitely very haunting and
Mm-hmm.
horrifying. And like you said, there's that contradiction between, reality and then I guess what the science is or what the focus is. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that this little dainty, very, very young child died. in the most horrible way. And then what they are focusing on instead is, using him sort of like an instrument to get to the bottom of it, right? And of course, like, it's not wrong because they're trying to save more lives, but it just feels, very cold in a good way, like in this movie, because it makes you terrified.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely like that scene as well.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe, how that scene is shot, but that's one of the best scenes in this film for how they, break it down, and it makes it very real that, this was a real person, a real child who had a whole life ahead of them, and they were, tortured and abused, and that was horrible. The coroner comes out and says they don't know exactly the cause of death yet, but they're going to find out more. But they did discover semen in the boy's rectum. Like, once again, this film is like very explicit on what exactly, this sort of abuse to children is like. They don't mince words. They go to the edge. They also show a little bit of it or hints of it through the film. So it's very, very disturbing. I think that's why a lot of people, are champions of this film, because it does go there on talking about this kind of evil, this level of evil. But yeah, any comments before we jump to the
I just wanted to say also that because they were just so direct about it, it made me think of like, oh shit, like, these people, these jobs actually exist. There are people who have to examine children's bodies, and this is their job. And I was thinking also in that scene, like, that's such a horrible job, but also like a useful job, I guess, to solve crimes and things like that. But it's just like, oh, I don't know how people do it. Not congratulations, but like, go, like, you're saving some of us.
Yeah, no, those people are definitely heroes. I always think about like those FBI agents whenever they do a raid of some guy's house and they find 400 images of, CP on their computer. And I'm like, damn, people really have to look at each of those pictures to try to identify the children, identify the perpetrators. Like, that must be such a taxing job on the mind, And I think that also leads up to this next scene. So after, Nick and his police chief leave the coroner's office after looking at a dead baby, they don't go home. They don't go to therapy. They go to a party. they go to they go to a party full of other cops where they're drinking and having a bonfire, and Nick is sort of like, moping in the background. And then Platinus appears out of the window and he says, "Hey, Nick, I got something for you. Happy birthday," or something, he says, and he pours a bunch of bones on the ground, and he laughs. And then Nick tries to run out of the house to beat his ass, but all the other cops are like, "No." They hold him back. They hold Wolverine back from getting that saber tooth, and Platinus disappears into the woods. And then that's when we find out, Platinus was the suspect for his brother's kidnapping, but he never got charged, blah, blah, blah. And Nick has been haunted by that ever since. Any comments about that scene?
Okay, first of all, there's a huge plot hole in the beginning of the party because Nick says something like, "Oh, I have to cancel the caterer because I want to cancel the party." And then, the other policewoman that's his friend, Danny, she says like, "Oh no, you have to, you already ordered it, let's go." And they have the party. And I can never see Nick as someone who would do catering for his own birthday party. That's just like too happy, joyful for Nick. That did not make sense to me. And yeah, when it comes to that scene, Platinus is an asshole and a savage. And once again, I was thinking like, all of his friends are there, take this man down. Like, why are you holding him back, or why aren't you reporting him?
Yeah.
Like, everyone saw how much of a bully Platinus was. And then instead they're trying to calm him down, where I feel like he has a right to get angry and also a right to report him as well. Like,
yeah, I feel like if that happened in America, all those police would like beat his ass for real. Like, blue wall of silence, like back the blue, no matter who. Like, they would be they would be on Platinus's ass. Like, bro, what you coming around here dropping pig bones in front of our party? You get what I'm saying? Like, we've had enough.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know what kind of policemen they have in Belgium,
Yeah,
but that's like too democratic.
yeah. Too nice. They're way too nice. Yeah, moving forward in the story. So yeah, basically, Nick is telling his police chief, he hid the body up there, and it's because of some reason, but they don't know exactly why the body was left in the tree, or talking about the body of that little child. And so then, Nick is like given a lead to more information about, who could have bit this child. And he's led to some detective who gives him some other pictures that show that, there's a pedophile ring where there was like this person who was biting. So there's like a hint of that. Then later on, Nick breaks into Platinus's house, right, to do some investigating. And when he breaks into Platinus's house, he finds out that Platinus has terminal lung cancer. And he doesn't know if Platinus is there, but he sneaks upstairs, goes into the bathroom, the only room in the house that has lights, and he finds Platinus standing on a chair with a noose around his neck and a plastic bag in his hands. And Platinus says the funniest line in the film. He says, "Can I get some privacy, please?" Dog, I hate to say it. I hate to say it. Platinus, he deserves an Oscar. Best comedic acting this year. Low key. Like, the trolling that this man does is next level. Is Donald Trump-esque levels of trolling. Like, I can't give it up. I can't give it up enough to Platinus. But any comments about those scenes?
Yeah, that scene was hilarious. Like, unintentionally, but also like maybe a little bit intentionally.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure, but that was definitely like it's a scene that you weren't expecting.
Yeah,
Because I was expecting he was going to get some dirt on Platinus, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then here we are, this guy that we want to see dead
Mm-hmm.
eventually because he's a pedophile, and then he's about to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking in that scene, like, what would I do in that situation? Like,
Mm-hmm.
would I let this man die knowing he's a pedophile and he hurt someone from my family?
Yeah.
Or do I save him and get a confession out of him or something?
Mm-hmm.
But then you tried that before and it failed a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like putting myself in the shoes of, Nick, but Nick disappointed me with his
Mm-hmm.
answers and
Yeah,
with their question. Yeah.
yeah, basically Platinus asks, no, so Nick says, "You are going to tell me the truth. You wrote in the letters, you will know the truth eventually, Nick." And so Nick, being the guy who believes pedophiles, says, "Please tell me the truth." And so then Platinus says, "What do you want to know? Do you want to know about your brother?" And then Nick replies, "Tell me about the biter." And then Platinus says again, "You don't want to know about your brother?" He's like, "Tell me about the biter." And so then Nick says, "What do you know?" And the final words of Platinus were, "I know that I control you as hard as I can, motherfucker." Like, he says, "I know I can screw you around," and then kills himself. And then Nick just stands there aghast, like, what do I do? What do I do? How do I save this how do I not save this frail 65-year-old man dying in front of me? And then Platinus dies. Any comments about that?
Yeah, Nick is so annoying. It's like, this is the only chance to find, what happened to your brother. And yeah, maybe Platinus wasn't even gonna say that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, are you really using it to like for the investigation? Because there's a
Mm-hmm.
possibility that he doesn't know, or maybe he knows, but you can find the criminals in some other ways.
Yeah.
So I guess he was hoping for Platinus to be the killer or
Mm-hmm.
the abductor, the
Mm-hmm.
troll, but he wasn't. And it was just sort of weird because in that scene, Platinus was crying and
Mm-hmm.
Nick isn't crying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it felt like Nick was feeling less emotions than Platinus.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe makes sense because Platinus was about to kill himself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. It just felt like this is what I mean when he was in between of trying to find what happened to his brother and then trying
Mm-hmm.
to help the victims of now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like he wanted to know what happened to his brother, obviously, but then he went for asking who's the biter.
Right. Now, in his defense, maybe he thought, if I can find the biter, I can also find my brother, because it seems like maybe I have a hint you guys are connected. And if I can find out about this ring, this circle, because Nick says earlier, pedophiles sort of like operate underground in this network. So if I can find one, I can find them all. But yeah, I felt like when Platinus is dying, like he should have like saved him, tied him up, and like interrogated him, tortured him until he got the answers. You know what I mean? Because Platinus is about to die anyway. You have nothing to lose. If you're going to be breaking into houses, go all the way. You get what I'm saying? But it was just kind of frustrating seeing this guy who, projects himself as very macho, or the director projects him to us as very macho. Like, low key, you think Nick is like super strong and super scary and he can beat up anybody in this film, but he sort of like stands back while Platinus just dies in front of him, very strangely, like shaking his hands, like, oh, what do I do? So annoying. And yeah, I think Platinus was like very disappointed that Nick didn't want to know about his brother. You know what I mean? Like, you have me right here. I'm willing to tell you. And I ask you twice, and you don't even want to know about your own brother who disappeared. You get what I'm saying?
I think maybe in a sense because Platinus knew how much Nick wanted to know what happened to his brother. Maybe Nick was trying to troll Platinus as well. And he was like, haha, like, I don't want to know about my brother anymore.
No, Nick
And
doesn't have
then
that level. He
sort of,
doesn't have it. No.
it backfired on him, and Platinus like left the conversation with
I
a
think
bigger troll.
I think maybe Nick didn't want to give Platinus that power. Like, yeah, you've been saying you know about my brother all this time, but once again, Platinus has been telling him 5 different things about his brother. Your brother's dead. Your brother loves me. Your brother is now a pedophile too. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, so maybe Nick didn't even want to hear what he had to say because he wouldn't believe it, or he didn't want to be misled anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what I was getting at as well. But yeah, definitely it was like a turn off from the character when Nick was just so helpless in front of this, pedophile who
Yeah.
has lung cancer and who's killing himself. And
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
this like big, strong policeman and you have the law with you compared to, a possible pedophile.
Yeah. One last thing before we get off of this scene, that's unintentionally hilarious to some degree. When Platinus dies, he pisses himself, right? And there's a lot of piss in this movie. Why do you think there's any sort of significance to pee and urine all throughout this film?
Uh, I mean, I don't know what P necessarily like symbolizes in this movie, but maybe it is like a bad nature that every person has in them. Everyone has some sort of twisted fantasies or thoughts, and it doesn't have to be sexual. Maybe you think about harming someone, or maybe you have some twisted sexual fantasy, whatever. Like piss, we have it in us. And it's our choice to get rid of it, like how we go to the toilet. And it does come back, we just like pee out again.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just something I made up right now.
Yeah, I think, what was I going to say? There's a scene earlier, with the woman who has her young boy and her husband living in this house that they newly bought. And she invites like a caretaker, into the crib, and she touches the bed and says, oh yeah, I think my son or peed on the bed, and that happens sometimes, right? And, yeah, once again, the person who is kidnapping kids pees in the house all over the place, and more piss comes later. I don't know. I can't really find any sort of like meaning to piss. I can't find it. I just can't find it. I feel like there's something there. I just can't put my exact finger on it. No Diddy. No Platinus.
Okay. I mean, like I said, that's my take on it, because if you
Yeah.
think about Platinus as well, it's only like when you actually die that you get rid of it and it doesn't really matter anymore, even if it's out.
Okay.
And Platinus's piss was just out there because he pissed
Yeah.
himself, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because he's dead.
Yeah. Anyway, Nick sort of like investigates the house and doesn't find anything. He keeps on looking and looking. And then the next day when he goes to his house, he wakes up and he finds a letter there that has like a mysterious map. Uh, Also at the house of the family, with the young boy, I forgot their names, right? But the son's name is Joff, right? The woman is saying like, hey,
Joff.
Joff.
Sorry.
That's what I said, Joff.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, the woman is telling her son, hey, Joff, we're going to leave to go on vacation. And the husband is like getting ready to go too. And the woman takes a sip of her coffee and then she's drugged and faints. And as she's fainting, she sees a foot walk over to the side where her son is on the couch. And, this is when we know that now this family will be a victim of this pedophile as well. The woman wakes up a few hours later in the house, handcuffed to like some bar, and she can't escape, and so she's screaming for help. And meanwhile, at the same time, Detective Nick is going on the hunt to find whatever this map is trying to show him. He eventually goes to like some place in the forest where he digs a hole and finds, some tapes, a bunch of tapes. Meanwhile, at the house, the wife is like trying to escape and she sees that her dog is in the closet. She tries to get her dog out and the dog escapes, but then the pedophile sort of like tricks the dog into coming to the door and then the dog is killed. Any comments about any of those scenes?
Once again, in the map, he realizes where to go in the map because he goes into the bathroom in the police station, and then he sees the icon for the, men's bathroom. And then he's like, I know that. And then he goes into the forest and apparently there's like an abandoned toilet or something. And then he, marches from there, basically.
Yeah.
So once again, there's that symbol of like, toilet and urine and piss. And I don't know if this is something like special to pedophiles. Like, do they just like do their crimes in the toilets? Or maybe it's hinting that they're doing it underground. I'm not sure. But anyway, maybe that, I don't know. Like, I was thinking maybe that was going to lead him to his brother, actually. So I didn't understand it at first.
Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes to the family being, abducted by this pedophile, I was sad, obviously, but I sort of felt that it was coming. Because they were showing so much of that family.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a shock. And I was really sad when the dog died as well. It was so cute.
Yeah, we sort of expected that family to be kidnapped because, they were showing them very prominently, and they fit the archetype of the Simons family earlier that was kidnapped and held in the house for days, right? So, we sort of saw that coming, and when it did happen, though, it was terrifying because, once again, the power that this movie has is that it's centered around a crime that everybody hates, everybody despises, and as soon as we see it happening, we're like, oh no. And when Nick finds the tapes, I thought it was interesting that there were all these symbols of dicks spray painted everywhere. And then when he opens the tapes, like there's like this weird looking dildo with all these other tapes in there as well. Did you notice that? Like I think the little hints in this movie make it disturbing. Like the scenes and the little things around that.
Yeah, I saw the dildo. It was really bad. And it probably like went into some guy's asshole. Really gross.
Yeah. A lot of different assholes. I don't know. And, also an interesting thing that I noticed too is that Nick was researching trolls, right? And so, before he finds the tapes, he's doing research like, trolls build holes. They build tunnels. They capture children and they find ways to escape through all the holes and tunnels that they build and stuff like that. But probably the single most disturbing part of the film is when Nick actually watches what's on the tapes late at night while drinking whiskey and scotch. Like, I need to be sober for this. I don't need to be getting drunk. Like, why would you be getting drunk watching these tapes? And anyway, they're on VHS tapes and they show sort of very explicitly these masked men, playing with little boys. And we see the boys like, it's hard to describe, but the boys are like grunting and the sounds are horrific. It's really horrific. It's really vile. And Nick sort of has to watch all of them, to try to find evidence. And eventually he finds a license plate number, and he also finds a woman who has a tattoo of a heart on her back with jail bars over the heart. And he makes a copy of the license plate and the tattoo and takes that to the police station. But yeah, any comments on that scene?
Yeah, that watching the tape scene was definitely once again horrifying and I think they did it well because they don't show us like the full clips, but they
Mm-hmm.
show like seconds of it, and we can
Mm-hmm.
just feel the horribleness of it because we know that those little children, little boys are getting, raped.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I don't know if he saw his brother there as well because I felt like he did because he put down his brother's picture
Mm-hmm.
before continuing after he saw the first tape.
Mm.
And yeah, it was definitely gross, like every thing that they showed. And this is the only like power that the movie uses to
Yeah.
be like really horrifying, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a long time while watching films. I won't forget that ever. It's sort of like cemented in my brain, right? And the crazy thing is, like, this film is based in so much reality because there is so much of that sort of content floating around in the dark parts of the internet or secret societies of people that do these horrible things to children. And that, like you said, actually, that is the power of this film because the crime is so horrific, and also, they don't shy away from showing this, right? They only show clips, but it's more than you want to see. It's more than you even want to imagine.
Yeah, and I have to say, I did always think that pedophilia was just a terrible thing.
Hmm.
And everyone who feels or not feels, but does these sorts of things are problematic. They should be punished and things like that. Right. But then I remember we had a conversation with you, and I'm not trying to make you like look bad,
Hmm.
but it just affected me and affected the way I think. And that's why I'm saying it. We were having like this conversation and we were in Serbia. I
Yeah.
remember it so vividly. And you said something like, being homosexual, being gay, being lesbian, or being trans was seen as a crime, as a psychological disorder,
Hmm.
100 years ago. But now it seems normal. Well, like, what if pedophilia is something like that as well? And you didn't necessarily say it like for pedophilia, I think. You said it
Yeah.
for multiple things.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, shat play and things like that. But I think like this was in there, like liking children,
Right.
basically, was in there. And I was thinking about that conversation during this movie as well.
Hmm.
Do you still feel the same way after seeing this movie?
Right. I want to make it explicitly clear because I have spoken to you about this, and I believe I've even spoken about this on my channel before, but I want to make it clear, like, abusing children should not be allowed under any circumstances. But I think that is a separate thing from thinking about pedophilia as a sort of like, sexual orientation. I do think it's possible for somebody to be attracted to children but not commit those crimes. I think that's obvious, right? Like there's somebody who might be inclined to be an alcoholic, but they never drink alcohol, right? Or somebody who might be inclined to bestiality, right? But they never abuse an animal. I think what should happen in our society is that pedophiles do need to be identified, or they need to expose themselves or say what their issue is. And we need to try to find ways to address that and remedy that, not by giving them kids, right? Or not allowing that to happen in society, but finding ways to treat it as something that some people are just born with, or some people have now found themselves in that sort of situation where they're attracted to that, and then there needs to be some sort of remedy for that. Now, if they do actually like abuse children and commit crimes, then yeah, they need to be punished. But I think we do need to have a a change of mind of viewing these people as just purely monsters, right? If they don't hurt kids. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely, because I thought that was, it was really a revelation for me when you pointed that out. And yeah, once again, making it clear that we're talking about people who fantasize about this, but not actually do it. And yeah, like I do think that because like in watching this movie, I felt like, having this underground ring of pedophiles, right? There is a part of our society that forces that or enforces that, but also our society is trying to protect kids as well.
Right.
So it's like a conundrum. It's like a dilemma. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I could talk about this a bit longer. I just want to say that I don't think anybody in society should be like thrown away completely, other than the white supremacists and the racists. Like they can burn in hell, we can lock them under jail, whatever, right? But most people in society, I believe, should have the opportunity to redeem themselves, right? And I think what happened in my country, in the US, like we created this sex offender registry where so many people have to register, and this disproportionately affects black men. And I spoke about this in my live stream a few days ago, that white men, by and large, commit the most amount of sex crimes in America, around the world. But in America, a disproportionate number of black men end up on the sex offender registry. They say at least 1% of all black men are registered sex offenders, right? Now, should somebody, once again, who brutalizes children, abuses children, under any circumstances, should they not be punished? No. But should they forever be labeled with a crime? We don't do the same for murderers. You don't do the same for rapists. You don't do the same for people that commit grand larceny or the white collar billionaires that steal people's pension funds and stuff like that. Sure, you get marked for a felony, but they don't have whole websites where they can look up who is on the felony list in my area or district, right? I don't believe in forever punishment for people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And as someone who's in psychology, I also think I used to think that pedophilia is like solely psychological. There has to be some trauma behind it, and maybe in some cases it does. But because you've given like the example of, homosexuality was seen as, a mental illness, then now I cannot be sure. And I think there should be more research done about it. And the only way you can do that is, having these people who have, these issues or fantasies come forward and come clean, and they can get the help that they need. And also it could be helpful for the science of it as well. And I'm not saying they should be used as an experiment or anything like that, but just like therapy and, things like that.
Right. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. We need therapy for these people. I don't want to die on this hill because this is not something that, I'm going to be lobbying for. It's not one of my main causes that I want to champion in my life. But I would just say that, a non-acting pedophile should not be stigmatized the same way that somebody who acts upon it does. And by a non-acting one, I mean somebody who doesn't watch CP, somebody who doesn't produce CP, somebody who tries to get help for it, and somebody who acknowledges that they have this issue within them, right? And other people who do act upon that, they need to, be chastised and reprimanded. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. So, picking up in the film, after he watches the tapes, he finds the license plate number and the tattoo, and he does like a cross check on his computer, at the police station, and he finds the license plate was owned by a man who has died already. But he finds out that the tattoo is related to this woman who is still alive, and he finds her address in the system. He then drives over to where she lives, and he, says, "Hey, I'm a friend of Platinus." And she's like, "Oh no, you're a cop. I can tell. I can smell a pig." And so then he bursts in the door and he like tries to rough up this lady against the wall. And she's like, "Stop, get off of me. You touched my titty. You tried to rape me." And he's like, "Listen, broad, listen here. Did you and Platinus ever make tapes with like little kids and abuse them?" And she's like, "I'm not telling you nothing. And, you're not going to have any power over me or anything like that." And basically he has to, walk away. but he leaves his card with her, and he says, "I'll be back," and stuff like that. And then when the woman, is left in the house, she like smokes a cigarette, tries to calm herself down, and she says, "It's okay, it's okay," and she grabs the hand of somebody, and we don't know who that somebody is. Later on, we see the woman that was, kept at the house. She has to pee. Once again, pee shows up a lot in this film. The woman who's handcuffed in her house by the pedophile, she's peeing and, praying, trying to get out and stuff like that. And, yeah, the man keeps on pouring this toxin under the door, right? This liquid that seeps through the bottom of the door that she's trapped in the room in. Any comments about any of those scenes?
Yeah. So going back to the meeting with the woman, okay, I have to say this is where I divide the movie. So from after he watched the tapes, it's kind of going downhill for me in terms of like the emotions and, maybe realism of it. Because even this woman knows how to use her rights and abuse her rights better than Nick. She's like, "Oh, you touched my titty, I'm going to report you." And like Nick is, not doing anything, obviously. And yeah, there was definitely like the vibe of the woman. It was creepy. She did look like a criminal or someone who's capable of what Nick's accusing her of. So I definitely got like, okay, she might be in this. But then it's also like an interesting, thing that they showed women being included in this. Because most of the time we assume it's just men doing all these things, but it's not. There are also women who, abuse kids or become part of this crime scene, or even, they are the abusers and the rapists as well. So yeah, that part was interesting to include a woman in it for me, and sort of break that stereotype.
Yeah. Speaking of women, wasn't the woman that the girl Joff's mother, like the caretaker that she hired, is she the one who allowed the other guy to break in there? Because we never saw her again.
No, the caretaker was for the Simmons, not the new family that got, trapped in the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, either way, yeah, it was, that was a very intense scene, and the movie opens up another mystery with, like, who is this man that she held hands with when, Nick left her house, but it was very intense. But that was the beginning of the, like, major frustration with Nick, because, like, okay, you got this lead, you got the tapes, you got all this information. Why aren't you using your police resources and reporting this to your buddy? I can't find any reason why Nick wanted to hold on to all of this CP that he found, get all of the information to these CP perpetrators, and then proceed to chase them down by himself. I was trying to explain this in my head, rationalize it in my head, but the only conclusion I could come to is that Nick was just hell-bent on seeking revenge or finding justice his own way, rather than doing this in a methodical sort of way that would make sense and actually get the most justice. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it also would help him the most as well.
Yeah.
So definitely agreed that he's sort of trying to take in the reins and live his trauma with himself, which is once again masochistic for me, because actually what the police have maybe in their database or using their force might help him more.
Yeah. Yeah. But moving on, Nick comes back from seeing that woman. He goes into the police station, and the chief calls him in there and says, come in and talk to the wife or the sister of the Simons guy. And we find out that actually Simons is not actually his name. He's Armenian. His real name was Simonian. And so Mr. Simonian was actually held in prison for 2 years for indecent, assault on a child. And Nick is like, of course, this guy has to be the biter, right? So they go and try to get his, teeth molded to match them to the bite marks on the child. And meanwhile, at the same time, we see the fat guy from earlier. He is, developing the pictures that he found on that camera, supposedly he found. And yeah, we see actually Simon, in one of the pictures. Not actual Simon, not Simon Hill Keeps a Trail, but Mr. Simon, Mr. Simonian, the Armenian guy in the picture that he develops. Later on, Nick also goes to the crime scene where the people were held, and the weird bald guy shows up again. And he's like, hey, have you heard about the troll? He's coming around the neighborhood and like, yeah, I've heard about it. Get back behind the police line. And this guy's like, keeps on trying to tell him, hey, did you hear about the troll? And, he's kidnapping kids. And Nick sort of gets frustrated with him. And, this guy sort of like turns up on him too. And yeah, any comments about any of those scenes?
So here it was like the DNA found in the little boy's rectum, right, matched the father, and then now you
No.
have. What do
Oh,
you
wait,
mean?
yes, it did. Yes,
Yeah.
it did. Sorry.
So then there's like another suspect added, though I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like it was him. Like I didn't think it was gonna be going in that direction, that it was actually the father and then he was like torturing his own family just to, F his son.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of didn't make sense to me, but Nick and like the others were buying into it because it's the DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's scientific proof. And yeah, I was trying to still make sense of what the actual criminal was trying to do to the family. Because
Mm-hmm.
then we saw those photos of, Mr. Simons penetrating his son,
Mm-hmm.
basically, which was also disturbing as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also didn't understand why Nick just sort of hated that guy. Because it felt like that guy wanted to say something and he had some information. And Nick has been going around trying to collect information, but when information comes to him, he doesn't accept it. So that was also stupid as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I thought, well, when it comes to the scene of the bald guy trying to tell Nick, hey, there's a troll in the neighborhood, that guy was still prime suspect number two, at least in the film, right? Because up to that point, we'd only seen him, being a swimming coach at some high school, and he's sort of like touching the kids inappropriately, looking weirdly around, creeping around the neighborhood. So he's still prime suspect. And yeah, that's what I was thinking, So when we're watching him on scene, it seems like he was trying to throw Nick off the case, by saying, "Hey, police, the murderer went that away," while he's holding the knife behind his back. And yeah, as far as like the Mr. Simons connection, I was still very confused because why would a father want to do that to his own son under any circumstances? And I was also thinking like, damn, the Armenians are like some dirty tethers. They go places, they hide their last names just to like try to fit in that they're white. That's what I was thinking.
Don't say that. I didn't understand really why they made his character Armenian because it didn't have any, importance to the story.
Right. Well, I think, he changed his last name because he did time under his real name. So he wanted to move to another city and place and change his identity to get a clean slate.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. They said like most Armenians change their names because they want to, not be targeted.
Yeah, they want to fit in. They want to be white.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on from that scene, we go back to Nancy's house. Nancy is the woman that Nick confronted earlier about, being on the tapes. She's the woman with the jail heart tattoo. And we see that the boy that she was holding hands with is actually, dun dun dun, Nick's brother. Because the grown man Nick brother is saying, I'm an Indian. And he seems developmentally challenged and he has stunted growth in his mind. And Nancy sort of puts the red Indian hat back on his head with all the feathers. And, she's like comforting him and she's telling him, listen, what are you going to tell the police if anybody asks you? Nancy saved me. Nancy saved me from the mean men, something like that. And that was a big reveal. And Nancy sort of has like a trick up her sleeve, right? I thought that was very interesting that we got the reveal of what happened to Nick's brother, sort of like in the, 75% through of this film. Any comments?
For me, like, yeah, I understood that it was his brother, But I was confused because she told him, who is the bad guy? Platinus. Who saved you? Nancy, right? But I was wondering if whether like she was the one who actually raped him,
Mm-hmm.
and then sort of was putting the blame on Platinus because she knew the police was looking or suspecting Platinus at least because of Nick. Because Nick asked for Platinus and the biter and things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought maybe she was trying to pin it on Platinus
Mm-hmm.
to save herself, and she was actually in it. Maybe I wasn't sure. Because
Yeah.
Why would she take him and then raise him to be like this dumb, emotionally challenged and intellectually challenged person? Why would she do that?
I think, yeah, I think there's probably that motherly instinct in Nancy. Is like, on one hand, yeah, this was a child that they abused for many years, but then there's also the fact that he is sort of a child, right? And women sort of want to protect children to some degree, even if they go into that sort of nasty, disgusting criminal act against children, right? That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know, but I won't give any spoilers yet.
Not yet, not yet. We're almost done with the film.
Yeah.
But, yeah, after that point, Nick is going on a rampage. He goes to, Simon's, hospital bed after they failed to take the mold of his teeth because, he's sort of like passing out and something. And, Nick is like sort of like tearing into Simon's like, tell me what you know, tell me what you know. And the nurse breaks into the room and finds blood all over the room. And Nick says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just broke the blood bag," and stuff like that. And yeah, later on, Nancy sort of like tries to escape by tying Nick's brother up and saying, "Hey, let's play Houdini. Let's play Houdini." And she ties him up with a very, very thick knot on the screen. The other police at the police station find Nick's drawing of the tattoo, and they're trying to figure out who this tattoo belongs to. Why does Nick have this on his desk? And then Nick also contacts Nancy again. He goes to the house and he's like, I want some information, because Nancy calls him and says, "I can tell you what you want to know about Platinus's boy toy." But when he gets there, she's like, "Give me 5,000 euros and I'll tell you everything you know." And he's like, "Fuck you, bitch." And then he leaves and says, "I'll give you 3,000." And then drives away to go get the money. But when he comes back with the money, the police are there, and then he's hiding in the woods as they take Nancy away. Any comments about any of those scenes?
Yeah, this is where Nick gets hella annoying
Yeah.
because he's basically, complying against the wishes of criminals,
Mm-hmm.
possibly pedophile woman, and also almost killing a victim of, an abuse. So he's just all over the place. He doesn't know if, Mr. Simmons is actually the one to blame.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just like almost killing him. Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
up with you? And just how weak he is when he's confronted with Nancy is disturbing as well. Once again, like, it doesn't fit his character's vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And here, this is what I meant. Like, I don't want to give spoilers. Here, Nancy, when we see him with Nick's brother, she's wearing a bra. And it looks like she just, had sex with Nick's brother.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I was thinking, like, okay, so she's still taking advantage of him, I think.
Mm.
That's why I thought later on more that she might be actually the person who abused him. And Nick is so stupid that he would literally pay this woman instead of reporting her.
Yeah. Yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. Like saying, "I'm going to give money to this woman on tape abusing kids to get information when I could easily have her arrested." And another big plot hole for me is like, okay, they arrest Nancy at her house and Nick's brother is tied up in that house and his mouth isn't gagged. He can still talk. You don't think, how come the police didn't find the boy? Do you get what I'm saying?
It's not the same house.
It wasn't the same house?
No, the house where Nick's brother was staying is like a shed in the woods. And where she was staying was like a depot of some sorts, like in the city.
Really? No. It looks like the same house when they arrest her.
No, because they always show the shack like from outside. But when
Mm-hmm.
we first meet her, she's like in this big garage place.
Mm-hmm. But he was also in that house too, no?
I think that might have been the actual criminal.
What actual criminal?
Like the actual person who's doing the kidnapping.
Okay, I feel like when they show Nancy's house, yes, she's living like in the middle of the woods in like a junkyard with like old cars all around and stuff like that. But it is all the same building, and that there's only one building, and the boy is in there too.
I just feel, well, I mean, now going through it and thinking about it, the first hands that she held in her house, I think that was the troll.
No, 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 no,
I think so
no,
because it's a
no.
ring, right? Everyone knows each other in that circle. It's a pedophile circle.
Okay.
So I think that was the troll and she knew about it. And like then Nick's brother is in a separate house, a shack deeper into the woods next to her house. And
Mm,
she's still effing him.
really?
That's what I think. I mean, that's
Okay.
my theory, if you call it a theory.
Okay. I just find that very confusing that even if the police arrested her in her house and she had a shed in the back where Nick's brother was being held all of those years, why wouldn't they search the entire area? Like, search everything and come across that stuff. It seems like the police in Belgium really suck. Like,
These
they
are the
can't.
people, these are the people that hired Nick. Don't
It's-
question it.
the same cops that hired Nick ended up, hiring, everybody else who can't investigate a crime. Yeah, it's really bad, really bad. But either way, Nick is, he's hiding in the woods trying to like see what the police are doing, and they basically arrest Nancy. Nick is continuing his investigation. He goes back to the house where the Simmons family, whatever, was being held, and he discovers that the house has a bunch of different holes and pathways out of the house. So he climbs up in the attic and there's a hole leading to another hole that leads outside. Meanwhile, Joff's mother, who's still tied up to the wall, is, digging a hole that looks downstairs. And, she keeps on digging and digging with this tool that she finds. But she doesn't use that tool to break her handcuffs for whatever reason. Later on from that, we find out that, Nick goes back to the police station and the police say, hey, we arrested this woman that the FBI or whatever secret service they have in Belgium. We're looking for this woman for years, but we've never been able to find the tapes or find the woman. And Nick is like, really? Oh, I don't know anything about that. But yeah, any comments on those things?
Yeah, about Nick going back to the house.
Mm-hmm.
There, you're starting to get the hints because there I felt like, okay, there was a upside down handprint on the
Mm-hmm.
kid's window, and then now Nick goes to the attic of the, victim's house, and he sees all these like, snacks and food, leftover food and things like that. So I was thinking, okay, the troll lives in the attic and, he takes over the house from there. And
Mm-hmm.
then he digs the tunnel outside, and that's how he was able to break into the house without
Yes.
anyone noticing.
Yeah.
So you start getting the hints of the troll and his methods, basically. But
Yeah.
it's like we still don't know what exactly he does
Mm-hmm.
at this point in the movie.
Yeah.
And once again, Nick is dumb for, not turning in, what was her name? Nancy.
Nancy.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
turning in Nancy, because this is literally what you've been fighting for,
Uh-huh.
right? As an idea. Pedophilia, pedophiles, you want them all dead and gone, and then yet you don't do what you're supposed to do. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
the tool the woman found was actually her bra wire.
Mm-hmm.
She takes it out from her bra, and I
Mm-hmm.
also was thinking the same thing, like, why isn't she using it to uncuff herself?
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but,
Also, by going into the attic of the Simmons house, they discover, okay, it can't be the guy who we think it is. It's not Simonian. It's not his fault. So they then go to another suspect who is the swimming coach, the bald guy who's been creeping around. And they discover that he has been forbidden from contacting his son too, because of, indecent acts, sexual acts with his son. And then, they confront him at the swimming pool where he's teaching. And there's this very moving scene where he sort of like has a breakdown and jumps in the pool to try to like avoid the police who are coming in there. And Nick, jumps into the pool and actually like picks him up like a little baby and then puts him on the floor while the other police arrest him. Any comments on that scene?
Yeah, once again, like we see other, suspects being eliminated, right? It's not the father and it's not the weirdo swimming teacher as well.
Well,
But there is something about the weirdo swimming teacher, like he has done something or something has happened to him.
Right. Well, he now becomes the main suspect, right? Because Simonian is out, Platinus is dead, so it's pretty much only him to be the troll as the suspect. And so, Nick sits down with him and says, "Why did your son? Why are you forbidden from seeing your son? Why does your wife not talk to you and stuff like that?" And so then, he basically spills the beans that a long time ago, this man broke into his house and sort of forced him to have sex with his own son in front of him, right? And so the police then go to Alex Simonian, who's sitting there with his wife, and he says, basically the same thing. Like, what would you do in that situation? He said he was going to cut my son open and fillet him like a fish with a knife. And he said that he did this to another policewoman back in the day. And this is when the big reveal of the film is that the troll, doesn't molest the kids himself. He makes the father do it, which made me automatically think, wow, calling somebody a father fucker is way more insulting than motherfucker. But any comments?
That's a silly thought, Simon. But definitely the revelation of what the troll was doing was very, disturbing. Mm-hmm. And also, I think the swimming teacher said like he is impotent, right? So he cannot do it himself. Mm-hmm. Therefore, he made us sort of like makes the father do it. And I was just thinking like, oh my God, like, what would I do in this situation? Or what would Simon do? Or like, how could you even fight that? Mm-hmm. Like, you either let your kid die or you abuse your kid sexually. Yeah. That's really effed up. And yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I would die. I'd be like, son, you go for the knees. I go for the top. We're going to try to fight our way out of here. We're going to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. I don't want to even think about it.
Yeah. No,
I don't want to, but it was definitely like a good, crime. Mm-hmm. Because you want something like a good crime with a good motive in the movie, and the crime itself was definitely like up there, because it was just horrible, and it was something that you wouldn't want it happening to you, and it also was something that I never heard in another movie like this. Mm-hmm. So I kind of commend the novel for that, right? Because it was the writer's idea to do something like that. But yeah, I just thought that was extraordinary.
Yeah, it is a very big twist. I did not see it coming. It wasn't revealed earlier. Now looking back at the film, like all the signs were there, but it was still such a very good twist. I like that the story does go in different directions, and there is a mystery on who the actual perpetrator is, because once again, you're looking at all these people, the swimming coach, Platinus, Nancy, and you're like, okay, it's him. No, it's her. It's them. You know what I mean? But yeah, the troll reveal at the end is crazy. So, basically what they do, they find out that, this is what the troll is doing. And then Nick is like trying to, chase down who it is still. Meanwhile, at the Joff's house, the mother digs a hole through the ceiling and she sees that, her husband is there, and also her son is there and she can actually contact him. And also at the same time, the guy who found the camera, he's like going crazy. He's like, I gotta do the right thing. I gotta do the right thing. He keeps on saying this as he's like having a panic attack at his house. Nick then confronts Nancy right when she's arrested, and he's trying to ask him questions about the troll. And, Nancy is saying like, in 2 days I'll be free unless those videotapes come. And, Nick is like asking more questions, saying like, who is the troll? What does he look like? And, basically Nancy says, he pisses everywhere. He's impotent. Platinus was with him once, but, he smells like shit. All sorts of stuff. And she doesn't give any details. Nancy is another troll too. This is the thing. Pedophiles must be great at trolling, which goes to show like all the right wingers and like 4chaners online, they are definitely pedophiles because they be trolling hard too. Because all of the real ones in this film, they are premier trollers. Any comments?
I agree with the fact that Nancy is also trolling him as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know like how he's so easy to fool and blackmailed.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nancy is basically telling him like, get me out of jail. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, but we don't know what she knows. He doesn't know what she knows. He doesn't even know if she will tell her. Cause like, how can you trust her?
Yeah.
There's like literally no reason for you to trust her. She's a horrible human being, Yeah. I think at this point, like, at least for me, I knew who the troll was. Mm-hmm. Because all the other options were eliminated. Mm-hmm. So I kind of guessed that it was, the weird guy that they occasionally showed.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, so basically sort of that Nancy scene was unnecessary because the hint that they used to try to find out who the troll is the comment that Simonian said. He said that he would fillet my son open with the knife like a fish because he did that to a policewoman back in the day. And so then they look up who killed a policewoman with a knife, and they find like back in 1992, this guy was arrested, and it turns out it was the fat guy who was, autistic with the camera developing the pictures that we saw all throughout the film, right? So Nick and the female detective go to his house and they find, all these writings about the female toxin and his impotence, and also images of trolls digging holes through houses and stuff like that. They go into his cellar and they find nothing but piss in there and clothes dipped in piss, and him trying to do experiments to like sort of cure his impotence. And so they delve into his writings and they find out that he believes he's like a new evolved species of human being that went past sex with women, but somehow I guess that means that he needs to have sex with men, but make kids do it with their fathers. Like what? That was kind of confusing, like what did you think about that reveal about the motives of the villain?
It was definitely confusing for me, and I didn't really get it after the movie was finished and I asked you. Because I guess, like, if I remember correctly, what you said was he was thinking that woman's piss was poisoning him. And, like, the female hormone was poisoning him. So, therefore, I don't know, maybe he should be away from females as much as he can in order to get it up. And it's kind of confusing. I wish they explained like his whole motive better and more. But he was basically trying to attack females by, not attack females, but avoid females and try to make his manhood alive. By watching, other people have sex with children.
Yeah, the way they explained it is that he believed he was a new evolved species and that women, the hormones emitted from women were stopping him from being able to evolve and other men to evolve. So he has to get as far away from women's toxins as possible. That's why he, lives in the highest apartment in his building. That's why he sort of put the child in the tree. That's why he always goes into the attic and stuff like that, because he has to be as far away from women as possible. And that's why he separates the women when he kidnaps the kids and the father, right? So that's sort of the explanation. But still, it feels a bit rushed. It doesn't feel like it was like there wasn't any build up towards that. It's kind of like it didn't make sense. It didn't really click like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I said, I wish they showed like where he got the idea, cause like you said he was maybe autistic, but we don't even know that part, right? He just
Yeah.
might be, I don't know, like mentally challenged, or he might be actually like a crazy person. He might have a disorder, like bipolar disorder and things like that. So we don't even know like that about him. And since they went to his house, I wish like they read a passage from his diary or something,
Yeah.
you
Just
know?
to make it more clear.
Yeah, to make it more clear.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, basically, Nick goes back to Simonian, Mr. Simon, in the hospital bed, and he's like, there could be another family going through this. You're the key. You're the only one who can do this. And tell me what you were about to do that day. And, Simon says, basically, we were about to go on vacation, and there was piss there in the garden and stuff like that, and milk kept disappearing. And then Nick remembers like the earlier scene when he met, Joff's mom, and she was like, we just moved into this house and the milk was missing in the fridge. And she said like, we're going to go on vacation soon, something like that, right? If I remember. And, meanwhile, back at Joff's house, the mother looks downstairs and, hears what's actually happening. So this is when we get confirmation that it's the fat troll from earlier, and he's telling her husband, put it in her son, while he's holding a gun pointing at the father. The father's saying like, no, I can't do it. And he says, do it. And then when the father doesn't do it, the troll takes off his belt and starts whooping on the father. And then the troll looks up at the ceiling and sees Joff's mom and screams up there. That's like the only jump scare in the entire movie. That kind of freaked me out. Any comments on any of those scenes?
I mean, yeah, seeing the crime actually done in action. We don't see the father and the child, but we just see the troll there, and he's trying to like masturbate or something like that. And he's also holding a gun. That was definitely gross. Very, very gross. And I liked how, I guess like the way he found out, it was okay. It sort of also got me mad, like, because I was like, why have you been like enemy to this victim of a man, all this time when he had your answer to begin with, right? Because this was something that he could have asked way before. And he might have made that connection before,
Yeah.
actually. So, that was kind of annoying for me.
Now, in defense of the film, Mr. Simon, the entire time was dealing with something so traumatic, right? Like, imagine you just did this to your own son, and then you got to tell the detective. And I think this film is touching on something like interesting, once again, like male rape. It's very hard for men to talk about rape because it seems like we are the gender or the sex that can't get raped. We can't be taken advantage of sexually, right? Now, I would say in this circumstance, if this did happen to me, I would tell the police, like, hey, this is what happened. He pointed a gun, beat me with a belt, and made me do it, right? Like, that's the situation. But still, it's very hard to say that, right? Because your wife will never look at you the same. Your son can never look at you the same. Society won't look at you the same. So I understand why Mr. Simons was hesitant. Comments?
Yeah, no, I understand his hesitance. And their son died, right? And it is very bad. But I feel like in this case, they are both being sexually abused.
Yeah.
Because they are being forced into a sexual act. Both of them are. So it's not really like the father is raping the son. It's not that case. And of course, like thinking the logistics of it, it's bad. Yeah. But asking him about what was happening around the house during that time is not related to any of that.
Yeah.
That was such a simple question.
Yeah. Yeah. To some degree, like this whole film could have ended really earlier if Simonian did say, "Hey, this is what happened. This is what he looked like." Now, maybe he was blindfolded, but you know, hey, he could have helped out a lot to solve this whole thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I felt like both of them. I mean, I understand the mother because she was out of it.
Mm-hmm.
She was kept like away from every other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. And I'm not like blaming Mr. Simmons. I'm also blaming Nick as well because he could have asked that question earlier as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But basically, moving on, Nick sort of realizes what's going on. He breaks into the Joff house when, he drives up there very quickly by himself. No backup, no nothing. He shows up to the house, breaks in, and, the troll is running away with the boy upstairs. He sees, Job's father is like all beaten and bruised, and, Nick is chasing the troll through the house. He breaks into the room and frees Jove's mother and stuff like that. And then, he continues to chase the troll up into the attic, where the troll, of course, has created like holes and stuff to escape the house. And when Nick actually ends up catching up with the troll and confronting him, he loses his gun on the way. But the troll puts the boy down and confronts Nick and basically comes up to him and screams in his face, "I deserve treatment. I deserve treatment." And Nick tries to fight the troll. The moment that Nick is supposed to show his masculinity and be the big tough guy we all expect him to be, the troll actually kicks his ass. Like Nick gives him 2 square ones to the face, and the troll eats it like hotcakes, and then proceeds to whoop the shit out of Nick. Like, goddamn. Any comments about the fight scene and like basically the climax of the film?
I'm just surprised that Nick didn't die there. Cause that man is like huge. He's literally like a troll. He's huge. He has like big hands and he's tall and he can like probably, if he slaps me, I'll probably faint.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's like that much of a strong guy. And once again, Nick being Nick, he's just being annoying, dropping his gun and stuff and not having anything else on him as well. Not a knife, nothing. That part was, the tension was up. So I appreciated the whole like fight scene. And I think like the troll saying, "I need treatment, I deserve treatment." Maybe it's like going back to what we were talking about when, we said people who have these sort of tendencies should get treatment and do deserve treatment because, if you have a psychological disorder, we shouldn't just leave those people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do want treatment, or maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was hinting also to the fact that he's impotent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also, he's an impotent pedophile who's also homosexual, I'm guessing.
And on the spectrum.
And on the spectrum, he's like everything, that the society hates a little bit, So, yeah. And maybe he was saying that, I need treatment and I do deserve it, even though I don't fit the standards of the society.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, at that scene, maybe that is a cry for help. That allows us as the audience maybe to see that the motive of the villain isn't just pure evil. It's maybe them not being able to comprehend the world or get proper treatment or understand what they're doing. But still, it was very frustrating. I'm not even concerned about the troll. It was just frustrating that it was this build up the entire time, that Nick had all this pent up rage and aggression, and he looks like fucking Hugh Jackman, chasing down pedophiles on steroids. And then he gets his ass beat so handedly. Like, that was so frustrating. Like, I don't care. Like, bro, like, you cannot fight this fat, overweight, autistic boy. Like, you got your ass beat. like that easily, man.
I feel like he should have learned some moves in the police academy. No, like how to disarm a man or how to like feint someone, like
Hmm.
little tricks.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, though, after that, Nick sort of gains consciousness and chases after the troll through like some other developed houses or under construction houses in the area. And as he's chasing the troll, he finds the boy left behind. Thank God the troll left the boy there, but he also left a huge bite mark. And Nick is like, okay, I'm so glad I found you, little boy. I'm so glad I protected you from the troll. But you hear those police cars? Just wait right here, little boy, in this abandoned house that I'm going to leave you in. I have to chase down this troll and get my lick back. I can't get beat up this bad on screen. I got to go fight round two. So Nick leaves the little boy in the house and proceeds to run through the field and chase down the troll. And the troll is like hilarious as he's running because he's like sort of like waddling through the weeds and the water and like picking up barriers to like try to block Nick. And then they have another fight scene in the tunnel and the troll almost beats his ass again by like gouging out his eyes and like biting his forehead. And Nick is once again getting his ass handed to him. It's not until like he takes the troll to the ground that he's eventually able to like get some licks off, and he starts beating the hell out of the troll while having images of Platinus and like imagining he's punching Platinus's face and stuff like that. Any comments about that?
Yeah, why would you leave a child like that there? Because that was sort of bad. He was supposed to be protecting the child. The child could have died. The child could have been picked up by another pedo since there's a whole ring of them in the area. I don't know. That just felt a bit like unnecessary. I wish I didn't hear the police sirens there. I heard it later, but yeah, maybe I wish they did that more prominently. Anyway, and talking about the fight scene later on, I literally thought that he had his eyes gouged out.
Yeah.
And then I did not understand how he was able to see.
Yeah.
Cause we see like the troll like putting his thumbs in his eye sockets.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a bit of like a weird move for me, but I like the fact that he saw Platinus as he was beating up the other guy.
Mm. Yeah, like the thing is, it was supposed to be cathartic for the audience to see, okay, finally Nick gets to take his aggression out on the pedophile, the big evil one. But it didn't result in it being like relaxing or an, ecstatic for us. It just ended up feeling like, oh, Nick, can you like stop? Please, Nick, stop. I just wanted to grab the screen and say, Nick, you have the kid. Protect the kid. You know where the pedophile lives. He's a fat fuck trying to waddle through the sewer. You guys will catch him in like a few hours or a few minutes. Like, dude, chill. And I think that was like the clearest example when he left the kid at the house that this film is about a man who's so obsessed with the villain rather than the victims and trying to help the victims, and how this sort of destroyed him on the inside too, and destroyed him on the outside because he got his ass beat up by a troll and harassed by a troll his entire life. So yeah.
Yeah, I think inside Nick felt like a loser.
Mm-hmm.
And he also blamed himself for not being able to save his little brother.
Mm-hmm.
And when he grew up, he felt ashamed not being able to solve his case and actually like get Platinus in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Because of what he did, he could never prove that. So I felt like he always felt shame and guilt about that. And what he was doing throughout the movie was trying to make himself forgive himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he never realized that. Like he never, or they never say like he has to forgive himself and something like that. So because he didn't have that sort of like self-realization,
Yeah.
and the ending was just sort of him taking revenge on a pedophile that didn't even harm his brother. Like, of course, it's, he should still F him up, but, yeah, it just sort of felt like surface level because I don't think he had that self-realization
Yeah. Yeah. There was no sort of like a realization from him that something has to change in him, and also at the same time that, he needs to, how can I say this? There's no realization from the audience either on what to focus on, which is why I think there's a lot of problems with this review. Like, a lot of people just get caught up in what this story is trying to tell and the subject matter of the story rather than the actual character of Nick. Nick doesn't have any evolution or change in his thoughts or have some sort of release of what happened to him, right? He is just mired in it, and he sort of gets destroyed by it, right? Now, if that's the lesson that people walk away from this film, I think that's much better than just saying like, wow, this is the most disturbing film ever. It's disturbing in the sense that, we sort of once again get caught up in the evilness of the crime rather than rehabilitating the victims of the crime. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I do think, like, you are right when it comes to that message of actually focusing on the victims rather than the villains.
Yeah.
And we do that as well, like, as people,
Hmm. Right, right. So basically the film ends with, the Joff family being, rehabilitated in the hospital, and Nick, at his house, basically covered in a blanket, like he got raped. And, saying like, those tapes are for you. Platinus wanted me to see them. Nancy was trying to extort me, and, I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to quit and move from here. And, the final scene is the hand of his brother, banging at the window, like, Nancy, Nancy, help, help. And eventually his hand stops. And I believe, we believe he dies there without anybody being there to help him or save him. And, yeah, Nick never found out what happened to his brother. And, the final scene is, the two kids playing at the train park, like what we saw at the very beginning of the film. Any comments on the ending?
Okay, for me, the way they ended it and Nick not being able to find to his brother, it was
Mm-hmm.
like super annoying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's alive, he's there in the
Mm-hmm.
same freaking town as him, probably not too far away
Mm-hmm.
from the forest that he was searching the other day. And it was just so frustrating. And maybe I'm addicted to American happy endings.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I just wanted his brother to be found. Maybe the troll could have led him there. Or there could have been one last letter from Platinus.
Mm-hmm.
He arranged before, he died or something.
Yeah.
Something that would lead him there, I wish. And that confrontation between, his brother and him, his brother not knowing him. And, his brother saying, Nancy, help me, and all of those things. I would love to see that at the
Mm-hmm.
end. And to me, it was sort of disappointing just to see that part of the movie fade away.
Yeah. It is a very sad ending when you think about it, but it's so frustrating for the audience. I think this is that one sort of film where I would excuse that American happy ending. Like, he does find his brother and they are able to reconnect, and hopefully his brother can get some help and treatment for the years that he suffered. But I think also the film is talking about how these monsters sort of create monsters, because think about this, like, Nick he says, Platinus wanted me to find the films and see it. And he was trying to expose me to the same sort of trauma that he exposed my brother to, if Platinus was the one that kidnapped his brother, most likely, right? And if we think about the troll is trying to turn a father literally into what, the worst thing a father could do to his son. You know what I mean? So it's like in this film, these monsters are trying to like replicate themselves and always try to make other people be into what they're into. And that goes back to the quote Nick said earlier, like, these pedophile rings, they spread and fester underground like a virus.
So, like, by saying, by sort of not going after his brother's revenge anymore, did he, like, reject becoming a monster?
I think he did become a monster. Like we said, like, I think Nick's issue is like he sort of gave up on his brother and gave up on actually trying to, find closure in that thing. He just wanted revenge against those sorts of monsters, which ended him making a monster. We saw how he treated, Mr. Simon, right? He was beating him up in the hospital. He was beating him up in the hospital. The final scene with the troll, he's almost beating him to death and stuff like that. He left the kid in the abandoned house. Um, he watched, he was really watching, CP. You know what I mean? Like, he sort of did become a monster to some degree.
Yeah, true. He almost let Nancy not go to jail.
Yeah, he was trying to pay off a pedophile just to give him information rather than shaking her down for everything she knew and searching her, facility top to bottom. And he could have easily found his brother.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, maybe this ending is the happy ending. Because what would have happened if Nick found his brother? I don't think he would recognize him. I don't think his brother would recognize him. And his brother was also, I guess, by force became mentally disabled, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Nick is the type of guy that could nurture his brother back to life.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it was better for Nick that he didn't find out where his brother was.
I think they both had, mental retardation to some degree. Retardation, not in the sense they were born that way, but they couldn't grow and develop. There was a lack of maturity on Nick's end because I'm not saying that people should get past their trauma, especially something like that, right? But there was this sort of like being stuck in it and mired in it to some degree, right? Because he was still had toy soldiers and toy cowboys and Indians and like, dream catchers hanging from his window. Nick never left his hometown. Presumably he lived in the same house and in the very exact same area where his brother was kidnapped, right? Because he was still obsessed with trying to find the people that did it, right? And when we look at his brother, right, his brother was locked up, chained for years and sexually abused by, first men and then Nancy. And he, probably can't read, can't write, can't think straight. So there is both of these people, one of them certainly by choice, and then another one, by force, not able to grow up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess one of them has challenges with IQ and the other one with EQ. You can put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. This, I didn't want to feel so bad, and I feel a little bit dirty even talking about this film. I feel like I want to take a shower right after this. But, listen, there's some good parts to this film, right? It's for the people that are really into crime thrillers, foreign films, dramas, heavy themes, things you've never seen on screen. But if you're thinking about it from like a story-wise perspective and characters who do things that make sense, that don't make you frustrated, then this is not going to be a film you like. So my final score for this is like a 6.5, maybe a 6. I don't know. You?
My final score is a 6 because I love these type of movies. I love mysteries and thrillers like combined, and I love detective stories as well. But I've seen, of course, there are a lot of movies like this, right, in Hollywood, but also like I would say also in European cinema as well. And I've seen better movies with the same sort of logic than this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like the characters are not, like you said, sort of making you cringe and annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the crime, like the how original it was, and also how like bad it was, how terrible it was that it makes you feel terrible, which is what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that part of it, and like I said, I like the first half of it. So yeah, but then the ending and the second half was a bit had more plot holes and just some things lacking in parts of like the main character And
Yeah.
I would say if you want to watch a really good like crime detective thriller, I would recommend either Perfume. It's a German movie or a limited series. I don't remember, but it was really good. Or also Prisoners, by Hugh Jackman. He's the lead role. And I feel like those movies are better than this one.
Mm. I think, this is like a Silence of the Lambs sort of like ripoff where they try to like take it to the extreme. Cause like, the troll is kind of very similar to, what is his name? Buffalo Bill. Put the lotion in the bucket, creepy, disturbing guy.
Yeah, which is
But
very stereotypical.
yeah, yeah. But I feel like, Silence of the Lambs did better with the tension. Plus also Anthony Hopkins as, Hannibal Lecter. I mean, he's just amazing in it. And there isn't that amazing acting in this film. It's just okay. It's just all right acting, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But overall, that's what we got to say about the treatment. Check it out if you like it, if you want to, if it sounds interesting for you. But this is the most thorough, the most in-depth review that we have just done. So what you're hearing right now on YouTube, Spotify is probably the realest review that you'll ever hear for the treatment. Everybody else that you're going to hear talk about this film is going to be like sucking his dick and praising it. But it's not worth that. It's it's overhyped. It's definitely overhyped. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. It's overhyped. I mean, as maybe it's because we have seen a lot of movies as well, and particularly talking for myself, I've seen a lot of movies of this kind.
Hmm.
So for me, it's not up there, but it's still like a good binging movie
Yeah,
if you're into this genre.
yeah, yeah. Just check it out if you just want to see what everybody else is talking about. But you're not crazy if you don't think that this is something to go crazy over, right? So
Yeah.
that's all I gotta say. But y'all be easy out there. This has been episode 64 of Simon and Acting Movie Reviews. Shout out to Women Slayer, horrible name, but he sent a movie suggestion in the chat. He said for us to check out La Chamera, and that might be on the agenda soon, very soon, but it will get done. All movie requests will get done. So if you have any films you want us to review, send it our way, and we will look at them. And y'all be easy out there. Peace.